Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, it's the 1 year anniversary of Tears of the Kingdom, so we honor it by comparing it to the rest of the series. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, happy 1 year anniversary of the release of The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. How you doing?
I'm doing great. The premise of this episode where, hey, it's Tears of the Kingdom's first birthday, so let's rank all the Zelda games, makes me think what my life would be like if my parents used my birthday and each of my siblings' birthday
to rank you
to be like, oh, okay, this is an opportunity for us to re-rank.
Right.
You know, let's see how we're feeling. I know how we ranked you last year,
right.
But how do we feel about you this year? What's changed?
But I think that is a good, and look, we've ranked these games, some of these games before, right?
Right.
But I think this is a good thing to revisit from time to time. Partially because I don't remember what we said 2 weeks ago, let alone 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever. But also just in that our perceptions of things change and our taste in things change. And it's all up for reevaluation all the time.
It's true. I mean, when we get into it, we have our in front of us, we have our most recent rankings from 2022, and first of all, they just include. Do you know what? We don't need to get into it right now.
That's too much. Well, so what I was gonna say is I still largely think I'm gonna compare this to Star Wars because I don't change that much. And I always want to compare stuff to Star Wars. But this was just the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was back in theaters. And there was a moment where I was like, should I go see Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace? Round out my in-theater viewing experiences to an even 10. But I didn't. And it's because I still don't, even with the benefit of time and with the benefit of the prequels being sort of rehabilitated by the Clone Wars animated series and the Bad Batch, still don't actually enjoy the experience of watching really any of those movies.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But is there any I do think that my revisionist or having those movies around for so long has softened my disdain for them.
Oh, I think that's totally true. I don't really think that they are necessarily fun to watch as a whole.
Yeah.
But there are definitely sequences, and you're right, just the idea of the prequels, I am much more I don't know that I ever want to necessarily watch them.
Right.
But yeah, they've just become part of the movies. They don't they've just become part of Star Wars.
It's part of the lore now, right? And so you're I think Kaminoans are cool. Sure.
Yeah.
Long necks.
Exactly.
If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where if you are supporting us at the 8-bit or 16-bit levels, you can get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries that we are recording. We are currently making our way through NCS Arcade.
Patrick and I are playing games that are available on Nintendo Switch Online and Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack that we've never beaten before. We just released an episode on Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and we're going to be releasing an episode at the end of the month about Metroid for the NES. And so we got some great emails about Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and we'll
be releasing an episode shortly where we discuss those emails.
That's right. And we would love for people to write in with your experiences, thoughts, impressions of playing or not playing the original Metroid.
Yep. NES Metroid. Mark and I both have experiences playing it before, but this is definitely one that we've never honestly beaten in the past. So I'm looking forward to having a good conversation about that. Also, if you would like to get into our Discord, all you got to do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
At gmail.com.
and I will send you an invitation. And people are in there talking about Nintendo and what they're playing and what they are expecting from Nintendo. Mark, we got a direct coming up in about a month. And it's going to be a big one. I think everyone is going to be talking about it in our Discord. So get in there if you would like to have a fun, friendly place to discuss that kind of stuff.
It's going to be one of those weird ones where whether there's a lot announced or not very much announced,
Right.
it'll generate a lot of discussion.
Yes. Yeah. And we will obviously be talking about whatever happens in that direct, for the next 6 months. Just a little sneak peek at what our programming will be. It'll be whatever happens in that direct. All right. And then I've got my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book, but you all already know about that if you are interested in the comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I wrote the source book. Issues 1 and 2 are available right now. Issue 3 comes out in a few short weeks, June 5th, I believe. And then the fourth one comes out later this year. My God, and that's the whole thing. So check that out if you haven't already. Mark, let's get into our main topic. Let's rank these Zelda games. The first question to pose. Why?
So, like we said, it's the 1-year anniversary of Tears of the Kingdom, and we felt like this would be a good time. Plus, for the first episode of NCS Arcade, we played the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, which neither of us had ever beaten before.
Right.
And so...
And really, I hadn't gotten off of, the first dungeon.
And so we had we had ranked the Zelda games twice before. Once, just 2 months after Breath of the Wild came out in May of 2017, we did our first Zelda series ranking.
Sweet babes at the time.
Oh my gosh, the show was less than a year old. And then we did it again in February 2022, kind of after Skyward Sword had been released, and I'd played Skyward Sword HD, and
we both had.
Both had played Skyward Sword HD, and so
don't you try to leave me out.
I couldn't remember if you had, but that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you beat it before I did. And then we had never really been able to give Skyward Sword a fair shake because neither of us had ever beaten it before. And so now that we've both played and beaten the Minish Cap, what we're going to do this time is, of course, we want to get Tears of the Kingdom into this ranking.
Absolutely.
And second, we are going to introduce the handheld games, which we haven't done before.
Right.
We still aren't including the spin-offs, and there's no Four Swords Adventure or Four Swords in here.
Or Triforce Heroes. Right. So there are some I would say that all three of those games kind of skirt the line between is it spin-off or is it main series, especially Triforce Heroes, feels very much like main series, but we're taking it out because it's multiplayer focused.
Yeah, that's right. And so you're right. Triforce Heroes, Four Swords, and Four Swords Adventure are all part of the official timeline, the official chronology that Nintendo's put out. So someday we will do a ranking of the entire
someday we'll just rank the spin-offs
story chronology, but that is not today.
No, it is not this day. All right. So do you have any thoughts or kind of fears or worries as we go into this? It is I gotta say, my big worry is what to do with these Switch games, what to do with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because they are both so similar, and one feels like an iteration on the I don't know how to scientifically rank these. I think it's gonna come down to just a gut check for those two games in particular.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I have maybe stronger opinions about the two games than you do, because it's not that difficult for me.
It's not that difficult for you.
No, I mean, I'll just say, I would, between the two of them, I would put Breath of the Wild first, and there's quite a bit of space, a number of games that I would put ahead of Tears of the Kingdom.
What?
Even though I loved Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think in many, many, many ways, it is they corrected some of the mistakes of Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
But as an experience and with a little bit of time, like I think for me, Tears of the Kingdom suffers from being the same Hyrule. And you can say that like it introduces the depths, of course, and it introduces the Sky Islands.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what made Breath of the Wild so special was being able to explore that world for the first time. And Tears of the Kingdom revisiting Hyrule has its own joys, but for me personally,
They are discrete joys. You are no longer exploring in the same way that you were in Breath of the Wild.
yeah. And so for me, like Tears of the Kingdom, you can list the things that Tears of the Kingdom like does better or is more interesting. And I like if they are closer than that for you, like I absolutely respect that and we can hash that out. But for me, like I loved Tears of the Kingdom, but as a lasting as a game and like game mechanics and what they were able to do with Tears of the Kingdom, it's incredibly impressive. As like a lasting impression on my life,
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild for me is is above Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, well that is interesting because like there's obviously no way to divorce these games as we're ranking them from our experiences playing them and probably playing them the first time, right? That some games like Minish Cap and Link to the Past, which are very like similar in scope and like graphical presentation and just like they're very similar games. One of them I was like 9 when I played for the first time, and the other I was 40. So like I'm just going to like something probably better when I'm experiencing it and discovering it when I'm 9 than when I'm 40. And I feel like there's no denying the magic moment that was March 3rd, 2017, the Switch and Breath of the Wild like appearing and like that we're so back kind of thing. Like that's what it was for Nintendo. It was the coming out party that like Nintendo's back and they're the kings of everything. So yes, it's hard to divorce that from the experience of playing or like the quality of the game.
Yeah.
So but I also think that Tears of the Kingdom was, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly. But also it sounds like we're going to reach some sort of impasse. And we will, hey, Mark, it sounds like we need to engage our old agreement.
You're right.
That is there a first part to this, or is it just that
whatever? Just that the rankings are definitive.
The rankings are definitive. We must agree. And at the end of this,
we will still be friends.
We will still be friends. I agree to those conditions. You agree to those
I agree to those conditions.
Okay, great. Do we want to go over our rankings for that we did in 2022?
Yeah, let's do that because I wonder if, looking at this list, if you will have the same reaction I had, which looking at some of them, it's like, I wonder what our argument was for doing that.
And we'll never know because I'm not going back. And also speaking of not going back, we did this in 2017, but this was during a time when we were doing the show where we weren't taking notes on what we were doing as we were doing it. So we would have to go back and listen to the episode to actually get that ranking.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure what our ranking was in 2017. I
right.
know that the top was the same.
The top, like,
that
2?
Breath of the Wild and Link to the Past were at the top back then as well.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, so let's pound through this list. So at the time, our number 9, bottom of our list, was The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword,
a game that I really enjoyed.
Me too.
Okay, Zelda 2 is number 8.
Number 7 is The Legend of Zelda.
Number 6 is Ocarina of Time.
Number 6 is Ocarina of Time?
Okay,
here we go.
I know.
Number 5 was Twilight Princess.
Number 4 is Wind Waker.
Number 3 was Majora's Mask.
Number 2 is A Link to the Past.
And number 1 was Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously a lot of things that we need to atone for.
No, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this a little, like a little over 2 years later, and looking at this list, I am a little.
I'm confused.
Absolutely believe that we passionately had good reasons for making the decisions we made, but I don't know that those are the decisions that we'll make today. And I do think that throwing the handheld games into the mix is definitely going to shake some things up as well.
I agree with that completely. I also like it's weird because I feel like I've long held the feeling that Majora's Mask makes me feel bad, and I don't know how I let it land at number 3. I know it's a good game,
Right.
but I'm also like, it makes me feel sad.
Well, let's run down the
Let's run
games
down.
that we're going to be talking about today. I don't think these will come as any surprise,
Right.
but let's just name them off.
Okay, so here they are chronologically. We've got 16 games. The first is, of course, The Legend of Zelda on the NES.
Followed by Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
Followed by The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on the Super NES.
Followed by Link's Awakening for the Game Boy.
And then eventually for the Switch. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64.
Majora's Mask.
Both the Oracle games were just counting as one, so Oracle of Ages and Seasons for the Game Boy Color.
Followed by Wind Waker for the GameCube.
And then Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance.
Then Twilight Princess, debuted on the GameCube and the Nintendo Wii.
And then Phantom Hourglass on the DS.
Spirit Tracks on the DS.
Skyward Sword on the Wii and then eventually the Switch.
A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS.
Breath of the Wild on the Switch and Wii U.
And then Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch.
And so when we are talking about these things, we are thinking of them holistically, right? So that when we say Ocarina of Time, we mean both Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time 3D. We're also sort of including the version of it that was on GameCube that had like the Master Quest mode. Like it's if a game has this title, that's part of what we're evaluating here.
Absolutely. Same holds true for Link's Awakening, where the Switch remake will also come into account when we're talking about that game.
Right. There are a lot of these games that have been remade. Are there any remakes that you're surprised haven't happened yet?
No.
I'm springing this on you, so I apologize.
Well,
this is a tough question.
So the thing I keep expecting is that we will get another version, another take on Ocarina of Time. And I don't know that it's a full remake. Because the 3D remasters, I think, at least for Ocarina of Time, unquestionably is like the definitive edition of that game.
Yeah,
to my mind. And I know that we've seen some 3DS games appear on Switch, but I don't know. It feels like
we're about to see Luigi's Mansion,
right? But it feels like when we see Ocarina of Time again, that it will not just be because the game is so beloved. I feel like they will treat it with a little more like respect than Luigi's Mansion 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, it's just like the Mario RPGs that are getting this from the ground up remake, Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Those are obviously loving recreations of these things. But even that doesn't seem like enough, right?
Well, I also think that I think you could the thing with the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is I don't mean easy as a pejorative, but I think it's easier to do an HD remake, an HD recreation of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door than it would be of Ocarina of Time.
Right. Yeah, well, because there's something about just the way you deal with 3D spaces that has changed in the years since Ocarina of Time came out, right?
I also think the character designs, the look and feel of Thousand Year Door, it wasn't really dated.
Right.
It just needed that HD polish.
Right. Well, and the gameplay in a lot of ways is just extra button presses on turn-based combat, which has been around since 1980 whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to not need to update there in a way that you would absolutely have to wrestle with and find a balance. to remake a 3D Zelda game.
But that's the one that someday I expect to see, like, some sort of remake of.
Yeah. I also please find a way to remake Zelda 2. Link, the Adventure of Link, turn it into Link's Adventure. Just do the Metroid thing, right?
That'd be interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did it with Link's Awakening, and then like Link to the Past, if not a remake, has like a sequel in Link Between Worlds. Which is that's one where, although I understand why they would never do that.
Someday I'll not this episode because we don't have the time.
Yeah.
I'll make the argument that Skyward Sword is in some ways a remake of Zelda 2.
Yeah, I see it. I think that's good. I think that is a very good point. And I get it. How do you want to approach this?
Let's break it out into tiers. Let's do a gut check.
Gut check. All right. So starting at the beginning, and we did recently do at the end of last year, we did an exercise where we put the Zelda games into greatest hits, next steps, all that kind of stuff. And whatever we said there is going to have no bearing on what we say or do here.
Part of that is because I'm sure we can't remember what we said, and two, those like greatest hits episodes are not they're not about quality,
right?
They're about if somebody really liked Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, where would we recommend they go next?
Yes.
This, however, is a list like which one do we like better?
Right, exactly. Yes, and so it's going to reflect our personal tastes here. All right. The original Legend of Zelda. Is this a...
I'm gonna... where do we want to start? Do we want to do like tiers, or do we just want to do like high, low? Because I would say this is lower on the spectrum for me.
It's lower on the spectrum, but I feel like it's the high end of the low spectrum.
B tier, maybe?
Let's put it in B tier.
Okay.
B tier is currently going behind me on the counter.
How about Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link?
I mean, the bottom of the bottom, right? Like, this is going to be down there with... it's going to be down there.
Is this my Phantom Menace of the Zelda series, where the longer that it is in my life, the less I dislike it and can appreciate its warts? I agree with you. It's at the bottom of this list.
Right.
But
I like this game more than you do.
And I think in the beginning I would have been like, Zelda 2 is awful.
Right.
Like, no question, it should be at the bottom. And now
you're like, Zelda 2's awful.
I've lived in this space for so long that I am kind of like, Zelda 2 is not my favorite, but I don't hate it anymore.
But it's not Attack of the Clones.
It's A Link to the Past.
I mean, I still...
at least A tier. Like highest tier we have going right now.
Highest tier we have going. And look, I mean, it was number 2 on our list last time, and I think we always put it in, or it's
always in contention.
It's always in contention. And every time we end up playing it for whatever, because our podcast or Connor's podcast or the Super Gamer Boys or whoever, we walk away from it being like, it's kind of a perfect game.
Yeah, it's a darn good game.
Yeah.
Link's Awakening.
A tough one, I'd say.
My gut says B tier.
My gut says B tier as well. The world of Link's Awakening is so compelling that I think that carries it a lot. Those dungeons are a real bummer.
They are. And they just get worse as the game goes on.
Yeah, that's true. And also, for as much as I like the aesthetic of the Switch remake, kind of can't believe how poorly it runs.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot of frame rate dips. Not something I normally care about, but it's like pretty glaring.
Yeah, what is this, Princess Peach Showtime?
Yeah, which I also had a problem with.
Up next is Ocarina of Time.
Yeah,
I think it's going in the A list.
I think it's going in that sort of A/S list. We don't really know exactly how we're defining that.
Majora's Mask.
What do you think? Majora's Mask, a game that I've never finished.
Oh.
Partially because when I start making progress in the game, and I've sort of alluded to this earlier, it bums me out to rewind time and have undone whatever heroic thing I just had Link do. And like, is that an effective artistic statement about like the futility of heroism? I guess. cool. This is a Zelda game, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Okay, so I like Majora's Mask a lot. I think one of the things that um gives Majora's Mask such a high reputation is because it is such a twist on the Zelda formula,
Yes.
and we've never seen anything like it. So, how successful is it as a Zelda game?
Is that the criteria that we're doing here, or are we just ranking games?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right. Because how Zelda is it feels like more
A different exercise,
right, yeah.
But I want to go B tier
Yeah,
right now.
okay.
And this could change. Obviously, it ended up third last time, but I want to go B tier for now.
Yeah.
Okay. Oracle of Ages and Seasons.
So I put this in the lowest tier.
This one, I agree with you, but this one always like bugs me a little bit for myself because whenever we talk about these games, because I know that they are adored by people, by a certain like class of Zelda fan, and I don't see it for myself.
Yeah, it's it is tough because they feel like they're both lesser than Link's Awakening, right? And I feel like that's just one of the things that we encountered when playing Minish Cap was that even in the times when we were like frustrated by it or had our complaints, we end up walking away from it being like, it is still a Zelda game, which means kind of great, right? It is the number one ranked in our games that we've played for NCS Arcade at the moment. And are those rankings in the book weighted in weird ways to favor things that feel like time travel? Like, yeah, maybe. But I think we end up being more positive on that kind of just because it is a Zelda game. And I feel like that's probably what buoys the Oracle games is that like, well, it's still a Zelda game that you were playing on your Game Boy.
Also, the history of that and Minish Cap are so interesting.
Yes.
Now that Fujibayashi is the director of Breath of the Wild, director of Tears of the Kingdom, seemingly next
and Skyward Sword.
Yeah, so seemingly kind of like next in line to run the Zelda series if Aonuma ever like leaves Nintendo or something. And he started working in the Zelda series with the Seasons and Ages games,
right? Which were developed outside by Capcom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they definitely are fascinating games, and the story of their creation is super fascinating. But even still, I'd say it goes in the C tier.
Yeah, I agree. Wind Waker.
Wind Waker. Wind Waker's a good game.
Wind Waker is a good game. Wind Waker is a game. I haven't played the HD version. This
Okay.
is one that I'm hoping shows up on Switch or something in the future.
Hey, direct in June, right?
Right. Like I would love to play it with some of those quality of life changes that they made from the GameCube game. Wind Waker is such a charming game.
Yes.
It is not without its flaws, but
yeah, it is definitively unfinished. Like it is, they just like abandoned the idea of finishing dungeons for this thing because it had to ship.
It's like Super Mario Sunshine. It was compromised by the need to get it out the door.
What you and I have been talking a lot about GameCube games recently. I just feel like they've come up, and usually in the context of like, aren't these games great? And I feel like Wind Waker and Sunshine are both examples of games that were like, had they been fully realized, would have been like all-time greats. But you know, kind of with the thing with Wind Waker is that even being unfinished, it's still really good.
It is still really good, and like Toon Link has been an enduring part of like Link. So I don't know.
I feel like it's above B, but below where we have Ocarina. I think Ocarina and Link to the Past are going in our S tier right now.
And then Wind Waker will be
Wind
like
Waker goes in A tier, I think.
Okay. Minish Cap.
Yes, The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance. Fun little game.
I mean, also not without its flaws.
Definitely not without its flaws. I find being small not as much fun as it could be.
Yes, and they don't.
They don't make you ride an ant once.
They don't.
You don't wind up in a cereal bowl.
Another just kind of like well, Minish Cap is interesting because unlike Wind Waker, it doesn't seem like it was rushed out. It seems like they were able to
Yeah.
achieve what they wanted to do, and yet it
Yes.
still feels like a compromised game. I think that just means I didn't like it as much as some of these other ones.
Mhm.
I would say B tier.
I think B tier as well. I know we talked about it in our episode of NCS Arcade, but this whole the whole kinstone thing where you have to match up these stones with people that you encounter is a weird non-puzzle puzzle mechanic where it makes you choose the right stone to match up with the person that you're interacting with, but like it's visually obvious immediately which stone it is, and it's like, why are you making me do this?
Yeah.
What is this?
Like again, like we talked about in that episode, some of it just feels like rough draft ideas that would eventually be
Totally,
developed
yeah.
in like Skyward Sword.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess, a good game.
This is another one where my esteem for it has grown over the years.
Yes.
Whereas in the beginning, like I liked Twilight Princess when I played it. I think it has amazing dungeons, really fun NPCs. Zant is a cool villain, if not like a great villain.
Twilight Princess, I mean, you said good dungeons. Maybe the best dungeons?
Yeah, if I said good dungeons, I meant like great dungeons. Because
Okay.
I agree, they are.
Maybe you did say great. I wanted just to circle back to the point of like, maybe they're so good that it makes the rest of the dungeons in the series look bad.
They are very good.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. I would put Twilight Princess, I think, in the tier with Wind Waker.
Yeah,
like
in that A tier. I agree with that. I also just want to add like a couple things about Twilight Princess. One is that like right when it came out, I remember having it in very high esteem, right? Like loving it. And then sort of I don't really know why I would have turned on it kind of at all, but like there was definitely a period where I don't think collectively the audience was, like some luster had come off of it, right? Some shine had come off
I think
of
so
it.
too. I think the like
The not so open world.
the beginning of the game is notoriously
Yeah.
kind of like bloated in the GameCube and Wii version.
Yeah. And of course some of that is righted in some ways in the Wii U version. Which again, another one that I sure do wish was available on Switch.
But yeah, Twilight Princess ticks all the boxes. It has great characters,
Uh-huh.
like NPCs. Midna and her arc is like an all-timer.
Yep, we love Midna.
Zelda
It's got that weird baby.
has the weird baby, like the most bizarre character designs. The Oko, the like face
yes.
chickens.
Yep, face chickens.
That are like apparently created Hyrule in like the broader lore. The amazing dungeons. I would say Zelda is not very dynamic in this game, like the character herself.
Yeah, but you got Midna. You got the Twilight Princess. So
Yeah.
who needs the Hyrulean princess?
Yeah, like it really does.
Also, it's got dual claw shots.
It
I
really
mean,
does.
like,
I mean, it checks a ton of boxes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty incredible game.
Yeah, I agree. And long.
Very long. Phantom Hourglass for the Nintendo DS.
A fun game. I know you like this one more than I do.
I
would probably put it in B.
I think B is
Okay.
fair.
I guess we can talk more about it when we are actually putting it in order.
What do you want to do about Spirit Tracks?
A tough one, because I don't think either you or I like it all that much. I think I like it more than you do. But truthfully, I don't think I've beaten this game.
Okay, yeah, I have beaten Spirit Tracks.
Okay.
I really liked Phantom Hourglass, and the Spirit Tracks was a disappointment to me. I think Spirit Tracks does a lot of things well. It does have fun characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big negative for me is that it kind of takes away your freedom to explore Hyrule and literally puts you on rails.
Right. And I would also say that when you are on those rails, I don't know, it makes the traversal like stressful in a way that it's not in any other Zelda game, where you have to like play this little train mini game in order to get somewhere.
And you have those like phantom trains or like bomb trains that show up on the tracks as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
That like get in your way. A soft C, I think.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword.
Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, a game that we both played recently in the HD remake and enjoyed.
I love the story in this game.
Yeah.
I love the relationship between Link and Zelda. They're like friends from the beginning, and like that's like a relationship that we don't really see very much. Like I guess they tell us in Breath of the Wild that Link was her knight for a really long time.
100 years ago.
Right. And like in Tears of the Kingdom,
Right.
they're in some interpretations like living in the same house
Right.
in Hateno Village, but it never feels like a warmness between them like there is in Skyward Sword.
Yeah, well, and it's not like an ongoing concern, right? Like
Right.
in certainly in Breath of the Wild, where like they don't spend any time together. But in Tears of the Kingdom, like she's back in time for most of that game. Whereas Skyward Sword is like legitimately she's doing something, and you like are witnessing it, or you have to like where she is determines like what you're up to. So yeah, it's a good active Zelda in Skyward Sword.
I think, with Skyward Sword is very very limited.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, there's not really an overworld for you to explore. There's a sky that you can fly around, but it's pretty empty other than sky islands. And then when you go to the surface, it is in very targeted areas. Like it feels very like
linear,
linear and focused. And I think that frustrated people at the time. I think Skyward Sword is one of those games that in the moment frustrated people.
Yes.
But I think revisiting it on the Switch after we had Breath of the Wild, and it had been a long time since we had a new, like old school Zelda type game, I was able to appreciate that structure more because because it had been a while since we had something like that.
Well, it's always like tempting when a new version of something comes out to jump to the conclusion that this is what the series is now, or I feel this way with music all the time. When like a band puts out a new record and it's like weird or different, or you don't like it, there's a temptation to be like, oh no, is this what this band is now? Is this the kind of music they make now? And it's like, this is the kind of music they made this time, right? Skyward Sword is the kind of game that it is that time. It does not mean that that is what Zelda games will forever be. And in a lot of ways, the next Zelda games are like breaking that formula as much as possible.
And also interesting to see that's like some of the stuff from that was introduced in Skyward Sword, like the stamina wheel, show up in Breath of the Wild. And look, playing the Switch version, I know was a very different experience than playing the Wii version, where they made a lot of quality of life upgrades, including to Fee, your like the
to make her bug you less.
To make her bug you less, like every time you pick up a rupee, it doesn't introduce the concepts of rupees to you all over again. Like that sort of thing.
How does that kind of decision make it through in the first place?
I mean, you have to like the Wii era was just its own
That's true.
brand
Yes.
of, hey, like we have to make these games as accessible for everyone as possible.
Right.
That
So did they really believe at Nintendo that like the same retirement communities that were buying Wii's for Wii Sports were then going to pick up a Wii Motion Plus and play Skyward Sword?
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, let's talk about the motion controls on Skyward Sword because
they're basically mandatory.
they're basically mandatory. I know in the Switch version they made it possible to play without the motion controls.
Seems like a nightmare though, right?
It does seem,
because you lose the camera controls. A great feature of the HD remake on Switch is that you just have right thumbstick camera controls, which the game didn't have before. Or if you wanted to play with no motion controls, the right thumbstick would control like the direction that you're swiping the sword, which to me feels unusable. That doesn't feel like that's a non-viable control scheme as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I also like the story of Skyward Sword was really affecting for me, not just the Link Zelda stuff, but then the stuff with Groose, the stuff with Impa,
yes,
the stuff with the I'm blanking on what it's called, but basically like the initial form of Ganon.
Yeah,
like the demise, which is just like this great evil.
Yep.
And at the end of the game, you defeat him. He's like, I'm going to be back, and I am always going to be coming back.
Yes.
And I don't know.
I also really like Girahim as like an evil fee, like that he turns into a sword at the end.
That is very
Demise
cool.
uses against you.
Yeah, Skyward Sword like has a lot going for it. It does. It is.
Can I raise another like thing against it?
Yeah, please.
So I agree with you that the story in its content is better than a lot of the other Zelda games. I do still find the presentation of the story to be a little frustrating. In that like it is still very like slow and Wii game like, where there may be sometimes where like I don't need to have like 2 or 3 different exchanges between these characters when like one word or no words exchanged between them and a knowing look would do. But that's not the speed the game goes at. The game tells its story slow. Basically everything about it is slow.
Yeah.
And is another like kind of long one, but like yeah, I think the story is good. I don't necessarily think the presentation of the story is good.
I also don't really like the sections where you have to go into the it's not the Twilight Realm, but like that like state, and you have to like pick up the different.
What is it called? What
items.
The quiet place?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, and then if
John Krasinski is there,
if you like run out of time or something, like the enemies start attacking you. Like I don't really like those sections.
Yeah,
like it is not. It's not perfect by any means, but I like Skyward Sword a lot more than I expected to. I also like the like Tiqui things. Kikwis?
Yeah.
Those, I think those are really fun, kind of like
the Korok substitutes.
Likes. Yep.
Can we talk for a second about John Krasinski and whether
Please.
like why are we in this like phase right now where he's like king of Hollywood?
Yeah, he's like
he's got
the new auteur.
Yeah, and like if the Imaginary Friends movie is like another thing that's out, like how does he have 2 big franchises? Plus he just like got off of doing 3 years of that Jack Ryan show?
Yeah.
How did Jim from The Office become the biggest thing in Hollywood?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a new Quiet Place movie coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A Quiet Place Day One, I think is what it's called.
I think it's what it's called. Skyward Sword, be in that realm between the Quiet Place realm between B and A tier. I think
you're right. I think it's in the A- tier.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Okay.
It does. A Link Between Worlds. Gosh darn it! What a great game.
It's so good. It's Link Between Worlds is obviously a riff on Link to the Past, in that it uses the same world. It is presumably a direct sequel, but it kind of destroys the formula of Zelda in that you can approach the dungeons in whatever order you want. It's not really advisable. Like you still can kind of follow the numbering of them. And like you can rent items or you can buy them.
Yeah, I always thought the item thing
is a little overblown.
It's such a wash.
Yeah.
Like I don't really think it. I personally don't really think it adds anything to the game to be able to approach the dungeons in any order.
But here's the thing on that. I played this game once, right? And if I were to play it a second time, especially like shortly after playing it the first time, knowing that I could approach those things in a different order would be a super compelling reason to play it again. Not that it was ever so compelling that I did it,
but academically,
it's
a compelling reason to play it again.
Yeah.
This is another one. Plot, so good.
Fantastic.
Good use of the 3D capabilities if you want to play with 3D.
And what an amazing hook of you can turn yourself into a weird little hieroglyphics man and walk on the wall, become part of the wall. Just awesome. And like the whole stuff with like Hilda and Ravio, the sort of dark world versions of, well, like I said, do I want to give away?
I mean, we gave away the end of Skyward Sword, so.
Did we?
With Girahim turning into...
That's true. Like, that is one of the last things that happens in that game. Yeah, let's give away A Link Between Worlds. People aren't playing 3DS anymore. Ravio, the guy who's been selling you stuff, is like a evil world version of Link.
Yeah, so like Low Rule is the dark world equivalent. And the plot around all that. And so Ravio is in your world sending these weapons, but he's kind of like the coward Link.
Yes.
He's like the Link of Low Rule, but he's a coward.
Right, because if Link is representative of the Triforce of Courage, I guess Ravio would possess the evil Triforce of cowardice.
Cowardice?
Yeah. Does that mean that Hilda should be dumb?
She's not, though.
Isn't
It's a
she
solid
tricked?
plan.
She's tricked by whoever.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true.
By the bad guy whose name I can't remember.
Yeah.
Who ends up not being that powerful. So that's they all kind of play the opposite of their Triforce things. Yeah, I don't know. Link Between Worlds is a killer game.
I would put it in the A tier.
Let's put it firmly in the A tier.
Okay. Now we have Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, obviously in contention to be the greatest game of all time.
Yep.
S tier.
Yeah, I think S tier. And I think we can put Tears of the Kingdom
also in the S tier.
Sure.
I mean, I think it also goes in the conversation of like greatest games of all time. We will get into it maybe in greater detail as we go here, but like, you had mentioned that part of the joy of Breath of the Wild is like the exploration and discovery of that world, and Tears of the Kingdom, part of the joy of it is the mastery of that world, right? That you can create anything you want to really just steamroll that space. And so the discovery is less about what's around you and more about what you can do with what's around you.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a good way to put it, because I feel like the wonder for me of Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not a crafting person in games. I don't like crafting mechanics, and I was nervous.
You don't like crafting in real life.
I don't like crafting in real life. And in Tears of the Kingdom, when we saw what his
powers
were, I was a little bit like, ugh, like I don't know how much I'm gonna love this. To me, the wonder and the joy of discovering Tears of the Kingdom was that like, oh, like they made it so that way someone like me who is not that creative in building things in games,
whose brain is de-evolving,
as this show goes on, episode to episode. I'm sure you can hear it happening,
and within individual episodes.
I was like, oh, like this is cool. Like I feel like I'm able to solve these, and maybe it's like a rudimentary way, but that's funny. Like that was like fun.
Yes.
To be like, I can't believe I solved this by putting like 65 trees that I cut down together.
Yes.
And that's how I'm going to brute force this.
Yeah.
And then watching other people build like a TIE fighter and fly it around, Hyrule. Like that both are possible in this game and are viable is incredible.
Yeah. I do love just like seeing the things that the advanced devices that people would create, but like truly the joy of this game was making the most busted machine you could ever imagine, right? Something that barely makes sense, that barely goes, is super slow and gonna fall apart by the time it gets to the other end of the track, and like using that and it working, right? And yeah, so like there's obviously that aspect of it, which is big, but then there's also two other things just about Tears of the Kingdom that I want to shout out that I think make it special in a like Breath of the Wild plus kind of way. One is that I feel like there are more dynamic combat challenges to seek out in Tears of the Kingdom. What are those three-headed dragon guys called? Gleeoks. Gleeok hunting was some of my favorite stuff to do in that game, especially the King Gleeoks in those super high sky islands. Super fun to fight those guys. Really difficult, but like always a good time. And then they're just like weird stuff in the depths to take down, like those like doom hands, and those frocks, the like giant frog things. And I can't believe I'm remembering the names of these creatures. Whereas I feel like Breath of the Wild, well, it had the great combat challenges in terms of like the Lynels. Like this game had Lynels and then another couple layers on top of that for me were super fun to fight. And I know you and I engage with Zelda a little bit differently, especially those open world Zeldas, in that like I think if you didn't have to fight those things, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
and I seek them out because it's fun for me to fight them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in Breath of the Wild, by the end of that game, I was so overpowered that like they're like the scariest Lionels were like the silver ones, or
Yeah.
I can't remember. Like they were still some of it like a challenge for me, but I could take on Lionels. Gleox.
I think it's Gleok.
Yeah, Gleox. I never reached. I didn't put as much time into Tears of the Kingdom as I did Breath of the Wild, so I like never reached that level of overpowered. I also don't want to downplay the fuse capability, which is insanely cool. That basically anything in the world you can fuse to anything else in the world.
Yeah, and use it for weapons and
use
shields,
it for weapons and shields and like all that kind of stuff. And the way that they were able to introduce that kind of seamlessly into the game is pretty incredible. So yeah, I mean, Tears of the Kingdom is an achievement for sure.
There's also, I mean, there was a period of, I don't know, like a month after playing Tears of the Kingdom where anywhere I would go, I just wanted to be able to use the Ascend ability, like in life.
Oh,
I mean, where I'm just like,
Ascend.
My
gosh.
Yeah. A super fun and like compelling way to navigate through stuff that you know, you would have had to really do some like clever maneuvering to get around in Breath of the Wild.
I do think that the sages are less compelling than the champions were.
True.
I think that the temples in Tears of the Kingdom, I would say, are like a mixed bag. I would say overall they are better executed than the
Divine
Beasts were, but really
but kind of a
the
wash,
Wind Temple is like so good, and then in Tears of the Kingdom, and then some of the later ones like the Water Temple is just kind of.
I mean, you can approach them in any order, but
right. But the game like funnels you to the Wind Temple, like that's
where
the game wants you to go, and you do that, and you're like, this is incredible.
Right.
The approach to that is
to the Wind Temple is legendary. Yes.
And then you're like, if they do this for like the other ones, like if this is the first one, I can't wait to see what they do later.
Yeah.
And they're just not as good.
I'm remembering the water one and the fire one. Fire one, I feel like, is the nadir of them.
Yeah, I hated the having to like switch the tracks and figure out like that puzzle part of it.
Yeah, I feel like everyone I've talked to has been like, as soon as I decided I'm just gonna like climb around this thing and like cheat my way through it, then I got past it.
I did like the lightning temple, like the desert temple.
Yeah, that was fun.
Although the Gerudo village, I did not like as much as Breath of the Wild.
There's because in Tears of the Kingdom it becomes like almost a Warriors game, right? Where you're like deploying units to like, different entrances. Yeah, that's right.
And there was something. I mean, obviously they couldn't repeat it, but there was something fun about like you have to get the right clothes to go into Gerudo Village, and you're like men aren't supposed to be in there, and like all that kind of stuff.
Just want to put Link in a dress. What's the big deal?
So yeah.
And then last thing, of course, is the story in Tears of the Kingdom. Just kind of a remarkable like presentation of a pretty simple story. But like I don't know, the parallels of, and Zelda games are good at this in general, right? What happens at the beginning, so too shall be echoed in the end. But like well, I guess now do we spoil Tears of the Kingdom?
I guess we spoiled Tears of the Kingdom.
I guess we spoiled Tears of the Kingdom. That Zelda is that dragon in the sky.
It's so good.
It's so good.
That Zelda turns herself into a dragon. She has the Master Sword
and it's just
in her head.
It up. Yes.
And then
you have to land on her head.
It's so good.
And pull it out.
And then for Ganondorf to turn into
another dragon.
Yeah, he Jafars it in the end. He turns into a dragon.
Phenomenal cosmic power.
And then that fight, and then when at the very end of the game, when Zelda is falling through the sky, and Link like
catches her.
I'm tearing up. I don't know why. I love
so
that.
Good.
That part. That is so good. I also don't want like the joy of being at the top of one of the sky like mazes, and then the world like opens up after you've solved this. It's not a maze, but you know what I'm talking about. Like,
it's a labyrinth, right?
Yeah, the labyrinth.
Yeah,
the like sky labyrinth, and then you can jump from the top of the world.
Yes,
and seamlessly, minus a little bit of like
there's
stuttering.
Some seams. There are some
but
seams.
Like seamlessly jump from that to the depths of the depths is just incredible.
It's cool every time. Yeah, that's right. It's also fun to see the dragons that are flying around in Breath of the Wild. It's so hard to like compare the two games because like any good thing you say about one that you don't say about the other is you kind of want to be like, but it's also the one of the most important games ever made.
yeah. No, it's true. Also, caves were a great addition. There's a lot of good stuff going on
Yeah.
in Tears of the Kingdom.
And I gotta say, and I've mentioned this about Tears of the Kingdom before, that I really like when I can just engage in the idea of exploring the depths. Right, when I'm like, I'm just gonna put a podcast on and just run around the depths and slowly map this place out, where literally there's nothing else to do down there except explore.
Yeah, I didn't love the depths that much.
Right.
When I first started the game and you go in for the first time and you see like the enemies with the red eyes and it's dark,
Oh, it's
it's
very
like,
scary,
oh, this
yes.
is like so freaky. But then you get like halfway through the game and I don't know, I never found joy in really like exploring it.
Yeah. And again, that's another place where you're exploring and then you find like really tough combat to have to contend with, which is something that I'm seeking out. Give me those frocks, baby.
Did you do the Yiga clan stuff? Did you do all of the
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was another thing that I did in Breath of the Wild, but in this game I wasn't that interested in doing.
Yeah. And of course, Tears of the Kingdom just suffers by being an iteration on the thing that came before, right? Like, no matter what, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure there are people who are playing Tears of the Kingdom having not played Breath of the Wild. But like just knowing that those systems were already like out there in the world, kind of dulls it a little bit. There's also nothing in Tears of the Kingdom that is quite as, what's the name of the town that you build in Breath of the Wild?
Oh, Terrytown.
Terrytown. I sure do love building Terrytown in Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
It's a thing that you don't actually have any real say in, right? Like I guess you affect what order various people populate that village. But like the fact of the matter is, like, as you are playing through the game, this village that starts as nothing slowly gets built up into something, and then it's just an awesome place to visit. It's still there in Tears of the Kingdom, but like you don't get a chance to like build that up. Same thing with the house, right?
Yeah, same thing with the house. And there is a town by the shore, Lurline Village, that I
Yes.
think you can you can do a similar thing. Like you can
It's a little less because you are physically rebuilding that.
right.
That's
It's the
village
same
that's been invaded by
resource, like
pirates.
yeah, it's the same resource gathering type thing.
Yeah, but it's all like local.
Yeah.
Like the thing with Terrytown is that like you like couldn't set out to do that by itself. It's something that you just had to take care of as you were playing the rest of the game throughout the rest of Hyrule, sending people to live in Terrytown. Whereas the Lorelei Village was really just, well, you're there, you do it, take care of it.
I also think that not that Cass needed to be in Tears of the Kingdom, but I liked Cass a lot, and I thought that the Pelican character,
right,
the reporter
whose
Pelican,
name we'll remember.
Sorlong.
Yes.
Was good. The thing I didn't love about that is like you are so ahead of. Right, it's like that thing in like movies where you're or TV shows where you're so far ahead of the characters, and you're like, come on, like story, let's just like catch up to where I am.
Right,
and I felt that a lot in Tears of the Kingdom.
Right, and that Pelican guy, if he were more like Columbo,
is it just Perry?
No, I
can't
don't think
be.
So. Well, Mark's looking it up. It's should this whole episode just have been which is better, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom?
Yeah, that may. Yeah. Oh, that is. That's tough.
He is a pelican, right?
Okay, this is where the state of the internet is just infuriating.
Yeah.
Where instead of just being able to find the answer, it's like an article. It's PENN, PENN, where it's like 750 words of somebody writing SEO junk, where it's like, you want to know about the Pelican character in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to
Breath of the Wild.
To the 2017 hit Switch game Breath of the Wild, like...
Also available for the Nintendo Wii U.
Yeah, anyways, PENN, that's his name.
Right. It's funny to have that criticism when if someone just wanted to hear our ranking of the Zelda games, they've got to listen to us babble on about them for an hour before we even start ranking anything.
Well, now's the time.
Yeah.
We've tiered all of the games.
Tears of the Kingdom.
We've Tears of the Kingdom, all the games.
Okay, so here is the bottom of the list is these three games Spirit Tracks, Adventure of Link, and the Oracle games. What do you think is genuinely at the bottom of this list? Probably Zelda 2.
Probably Zelda 2. And I think, this is true for many of these rankings that we do when we're talking about classic series. But with The Legend of Zelda, like, I don't know that there's genuinely a bad game in the bunch.
Zelda 2 is arguably a bad game. It's a game that I like, but I liked Chippendale Rescue Rangers on NES as well. Like, I don't think that's a good game. I think it's interesting.
I like that, like the Crash Test Dummies game that was
you
available
sure
on the Super Nintendo. I like Stunt Race FX.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right.
I'm not sure I believe that one.
So let's do Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
That's number 16 for sure. Okay, then which is better, Spirit Tracks or Oracle of Ages and Seasons? Again, and now I think we've reached a point where like neither of these are bad games.
You're right. I don't think either of these are bad games. I find my memory is that Spirit Tracks is less tedious than I found Ages/Seasons.
Okay, because that is also my impulse, is to put Ages/Seasons below Spirit Tracks.
So, okay, yeah, I think that's right. And so Spirit Tracks goes above that.
And I mean, I just want to like emphasize that my problem with Spirit Tracks is not not Spirit Tracks with Oracle of Ages and Seasons isn't conceptual, right? I think the concepts in the games, the original like animal buddy characters,
totally, yeah,
like totally fun and interesting stuff. I feel like it's all in execution, that the worlds aren't designed in ways that are fun or compelling for me to explore, which is obviously something that Fujibayashi masters by the time Breath of the Wild comes around, because those worlds, like the strength of those games is that those open worlds are fun to explore. The geography of those games are just interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with you. I feel like the Oracle games suffer from admiring Link to the Past and Link's Awakening and wanting to emulate them. So they're like, well, we're gonna do a trading sequence and we're gonna do this stuff.
Yes,
but the execution isn't yet at the level of what Nintendo was able to do.
Right.
And so I just found it like tedious to have to go through all of it.
I agree with that. Okay, so now we are in the B tier. And again, these tiers are fungible. We can things can pass through however we see fit. In the B tier, we've got Phantom Hourglass, Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening, Minish Cap, and the original Legend of Zelda. Oops, I think these are all great games.
Yeah. Here's my beef with Link's Awakening.
Yeah, lay it on me.
I 100% agree with you that the characters, it's another one for me, like Oracle of Ages Seasons, where like the characters, nothing is wrong with the idea of it. Like, all the things that people like about Link's Awakening, I think are absolutely true. I find the dungeons in it, especially in the latter half of the game, to be such a drag. But I also have just realized about myself that, in general, I don't like 2D Zelda dungeons.
He doesn't like dungeons.
I think that they be without that third dimension, and they try, they kind of fake it, levels in
not
Link,
so much in Link's Awakening,
but like
though.
in Link to the Past and stuff. But I just don't. I just think they're so limited, and I just generally speaking, I would not. I don't look forward to playing 2D Zelda dungeons. So that just might be my my baggage. We've
got a couple other 2D Zelda dungeon full games on here, including the original Legend of Zelda. Do you think you like Link's Awakening less than the original Legend of Zelda? You're not a super big fan of the original Legend of Zelda.
I'm not. And I think it's because I didn't have it.
Don't mean to call you out. I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally right. But I think it's because I didn't have it as a kid. I didn't play it as a kid, and so I don't. The time and the ability to just be like, I have the Legend of Zelda. I like the Legend of Zelda. I'm going to walk around and see if I can and burn every bush to see if like something shows up, or I have Nintendo Power and I have a guide that I can read through it. Like that was not part of my gameplay and experience, and so like I don't really have a lot of love for the Legend of Zelda as a game itself. I don't think it's particularly fun. I can tell you what I think I would do.
Tell me what you think you would do.
So I think I would do probably The Legend of Zelda, then I would do Minish Cap, and then I would do Link's Awakening, and then I would do Majora's Mask, and then I do Phantom Hourglass.
So
That's what I would do.
Phantom Hourglass at the top of the list, and you think Majora's Mask better than Link's Awakening?
That's what I would do, yeah.
So I would have those reversed, but otherwise I think I agree with you. Let's talk about Phantom Hourglass a little bit.
I'm open to pushback here.
Okay. Well, so I don't know. I do think the original Legend of Zelda is so open and freeing and fun that it remains one of these games that's like imminently playable today. Yes, there are those like, are you actually going to run around and burn every bush? No. Are you going to bomb every, whatever? No, you're going to look up like a couple places where you do that. But the rest of the game is still like challengingly open and like in a way that feels intentional and purposeful and compelling. I would maybe bump the original Zelda up above Link's. No, I don't know. I really like Link's Awakening too. Maybe I just put it above Minish Cap.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Would I put Minish Cap above Spirit Tracks? How far should Minish Cap fall? I guess that's the question.
I don't know. I think I had a good enough time with Minish Cap this time through. But again, I have not actually beaten Spirit Tracks, so I couldn't tell you about how I feel about it by the end.
Let's leave it where it is.
He wears a nice little hat.
He does.
Drives a train.
The music's really good.
Yeah, especially in the opening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then Link's Awakening above the original Legend of Zelda, and then Majora's Mask above that. These two games are very similar, right? In that they are both fundamentally sad games that don't get to a like positive heroic resolution. The same thing that I was sort of complaining about in Majora's Mask, true of Link's Awakening. And they're both populated by a bunch of weirdos that are alternately lovable and disgusting. I mean, like a goat who's writing love letters to a lady. Like, do we like that? Do we hate that? I don't know.
Also, Link's like both of them also developed under interesting circumstances. Link's Awakening originally,
Yes.
Starting out as trying to do a remake of A Link to the Past
Yeah,
on the Game
on
Boy,
Game Boy, yeah.
but basically left to their own devices, and so they can do crazy things like put Goombas and Kirby
Right.
and like Mr. Right from
From
SimCity into it. Majora's Mask basically like you have a year to make a Zelda game,
Right.
using the assets of Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
Go. And it just being a very stressful, crunch-filled time for that team. Yeah.
But both of them seemingly accomplishing things on their original hardware that they shouldn't be able to do, right? Like, I know Game Boy games would continue to get like more sophisticated and advanced as they went along. But it's crazy that there's like a whole Zelda game there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just want to mention the Switch version of Link's Awakening has that dungeon builder thing, which is of limited fun. But I did enjoy it and got everything I could in that game.
What is in your hand?
Phantom Hourglass.
Oh,
is in my
Phantom
hand,
Hourglass.
which I would put above Majora's Mask personally. And I know you like Phantom Hourglass.
I really like Phantom Hourglass. I think it's a fun continuation of the world introduced in Wind Waker. I like the controls. I don't know. Yeah, I like Phantom Hourglass quite a bit.
Let's put it above Majora's Mask.
Okay, we're doing it.
I don't think you and I are sufficiently Majora's Mask pilled.
We put it third last time, didn't we? Fourth?
And now third. And now that we're looking at it, I'm like, why did that happen? What were we on that day?
I don't know.
Were we incorporating listener feedback or something? Was Connor on that episode?
Maybe we were just maybe I was just valuing the novelty of it.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. Mark from 2 years ago. What was
We'll
happening?
never know what that guy was
Well,
thinking.
maybe this is just another argument that my brain is devolving.
That's right.
So,
Phantom Hourglass also includes the fantastic character of Lindebeck, who drives the ship. He's the best. I didn't know that Zelda needed a Han Solo, but it does. And why isn't he in all these games?
yep. Skyward Sword.
Yeah, the sole occupant of our A- tier. I think definitely a better game than Phantom Hourglass.
I agree with that.
Majora's Mask: Link's Awakening. Yeah, I think that's
I think it's appropriately
sort of where I
placed.
put it. Yeah. Obviously, it could move up here if we have. So, Mark, you've sort of combined these two tiers.
Well, I did that because I feel like Tears of the Kingdom for me is kind of straddling between the two, and I know that this will be a point of discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's now the A+ tier.
Yeah, so let's definitively, we'll say we're looking at A Link Between Worlds, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll determine the top 4.
Okay.
And that'll shake out however it shakes out.
Okay.
Let's start with Wind Waker.
Hey,
if
3
you don't
great
mind.
games. These
Yeah.
are 3 great games.
Let's start with Wind Waker, and I want to compare it against Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
And just do our gut check here. If we think that Wind Waker is better or worse than Skyward Sword.
So, music goes to Wind Waker. Music's better in Wind Waker.
Ooh, I'm not arguing with you, but I am going to say I love the music in Skyward Sword.
I do too. There's nothing like riding on the sea. I mean, also just sea greater than sky, right?
Yeah.
Sailing on the high seas of Hyrule, the Great Sea, as it were, instead of the sky.
But not that fun in the GameCube version.
Not that fun, but evocative in a way that flying around in the sky isn't.
That's true.
Also, gotta say, King of Red Lions. I like that boat more than I
Yeah.
ever like those. What are they called?
The bird things. Pretty sure that's what they're called.
Yeah, that's right.
Canonically.
I couldn't get to bird things.
I saw you reaching for it.
Yeah,
And I'm like, Patrick, it's right there. They're called
Patrick,
the bird
they're called
things.
bird things.
Wind Waker.
Also, my favorite Alfred Hitchcock. The bird things.
Good evening. Skyward Sword.
That wasn't even this episode.
Yes.
Yes.
Wind Waker. Music. You're saying Wind Waker.
I'm saying music. I'm saying the sea versus the sky. Tetra.
Yeah, it's like they're both limited in their own unique ways. Like Wind Waker, an unfinished game.
Mm-hmm.
Skyward Sword, just very linear and focused.
Right.
I'm not mad at Wind Waker above Skyward Sword.
Yeah, me neither. Although I do wonder if I put it at the bottom of these 3.
I think I would too. And really, for me, it's a debate between Twilight Princess and The Link Between Worlds.
Yeah. Very different games.
Very different games. This is one, I said I didn't like 2D Zelda dungeons,
Yeah.
but I don't think A Link Between Worlds has 2D dungeons in the same way that, like,
Very interesting.
Link to the Past does. Obviously, you have the same camera, but they are able to do some interesting things with, like, the 3D of it all.
Right. Well, yeah, and the fact that you are, like, plastering yourself to the wall, becoming part of it, it's almost more than 3D in a way. Like, I don't even really like conceptualizing how you move around in space with that is very fun and cool. Also, just love I know the game got some like criticism for its art style or like its in-game art style, but I think it rules.
When it first came out,
yeah,
or when it was first revealed, I was in that same boat. I was like, "What? This looks super ugly. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?" But you're right. In the actual game, it works really well.
We currently have Link Between Worlds above Twilight Princess. That's kind of how I want it.
Okay, I was gonna say I want to flip it.
Okay.
I think Twilight Princess is maybe more of a. Well, I was about to say something and I lost faith in it, but I was about to say,
Yeah, let's hear it.
I think it's more of an achievement
You idiot!
than a Link Between Worlds. Because
Yeah, that's a very good
the
point.
dungeons are so good.
Yeah.
Midna is so cool. The
Wolf Link. It's a wolf with an earring.
Yeah.
All right, you talked me into it. Switch them.
in the 90s, everyone would have been like, "Is that a gay wolf?
Yeah.
He has an
wait,
earring. Is it on his right ear?
Yeah.
Because that means that he's a gay wolf."
Is that which one it is? How you can tell?
I think so.
I can
Yeah,
never
you
remember.
can tell. Yeah, I think so. Next time you see a man with a right he's
Oh, I
right
thought we
ear
were just
pierced.
talking about wolves.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, next time you see a wolf. Okay, all right. Now we're into the A plus
And
tier.
honestly, I say if you see a wolf and you're into it, like just go for it.
You've seen a wolf with an earring.
Right.
That's some sort of like sign
That's
from
some
the
kind of
universe,
sign
right?
for sure.
And that sign from the universe that may just be that there's a maniac running around piercing wolves'
wolf
ears.
Yeah.
Against their will, taking them to Claire's.
Even still, I say go for it. How many chances are you going to get to hook up with a wolf?
Yeah, I'm less enthusiastic about this than Patrick is, but the show has no official stance.
Okay, good.
Okay, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past. Ocarina of Time makes a movement compared to 2022, Patrick and Mark.
Yeah, I agree. Although I think it's, for me, probably at the bottom of these four. In fact, I can say confidently that I put Ocarina of Time at the bottom of these four.
I think that's right. I will say one word on A Link to the Past.
One word.
And that is a sentence. And that sentence will probably be a paragraph. But that paragraph is
a couple pages.
that I really think the joys of A Link to the Past, the more that I revisit it, is in the just like Hyrule.
Yes, it has the Zelda dungeon, 2D Zelda dungeon problem that we've identified elsewhere in the series.
But, like, we talk about Zelda having great NPCs. We talk about Zelda being weird. We talk, like, the characters in Zelda being strange and having weird, like, things that they're into and, like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All of that is in A Link to the Past. Like,
yes.
Like, exploring Hyrule is really cool and rewarding, and there are secrets in it, and you find, like, people under bridges. Like, there's just so much to the world of Link to the Past that is so fun and cool that, like, the dungeons don't get in the way of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also don't, like, for my money, it's not really until the very end of the game that the dungeons get to a point where you're like, Jesus with these things, like, really up through the ice dungeon, I think, like, is the last one where, like, it feels manageable, which means there's like 3 still after that. But the game is packed with dungeons.
Yeah, they're not universally bad.
Right.
2D Zelda dungeons are not categorically bad, but by the end of the game,
yeah,
I am very ready to be done.
And there's just so dang many of them. Also, music. The music in Link to the Past is incredible. Why are we talking about this game right now?
Because I think we're denoting it in third place.
Okay.
Ahead of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, which then just puts us in a place where we are battling the Switch games against each other.
Okay, well, here's what
is not what you wanted to do.
This isn't what I want to do. What I want to do.
Where do you put Tears of the Kingdom?
And again, this is with all the recognition in the world that it is an achievement and it is an amazing game. I would put it underneath Ocarina of Time.
See, now that I can't. There's no way for me that Ocarina of Time is a better game, a great game, but there's no way that it's a better game than Tears of the Kingdom.
I think Ocarina of Time is a milestone in gaming in the same way Breath of the Wild is a milestone in gaming, and that
it's a sea change for sure.
If we could go back in time,
we can't.
But if we could, like the types of discussions that people are having about Breath of the Wild,
yeah,
were also being had about Ocarina of Time. Did you know you could do this? Isn't it incredible that this works?
Yes.
Like all that kind of stuff. Like, it's really not to take anything away from Tears of the Kingdom, which I think is incredible, but it's an incredible iteration on something that for me is unquestionably number one, which is Breath of the Wild. Probably my personal favorite gaming experience of all time to this point. That's where I would put it if it was my ranking, but it's not. It's
our ranking.
So
we must agree. It will be definitive. We will remain friends.
Exactly.
Tears of the Kingdom, if this were my list, could be number one.
It's a great game.
It's a great game. And is just the problem with all of this is that, like, I find all of these games to be great games. Not all of these, but I find a lot of them to be.
The intellectual argument for Tears of the Kingdom being number one makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, they took Breath of the Wild and somehow managed to improve on it in a lot of different ways. Like
Right.
that's a compelling argument for making Tears of the Kingdom number 1.
But I also don't think that like that's not the entirety of that narrative, right? Or even like it's they improve on it in a lot of ways, but the improvements transform it, right? So like we were talking about the dichotomy of just like how you approach the world. They both have the same open world, but your relationship to that world is different in the two games, right? And they do that by story, they do that by abilities, they do it by design. And for as similar as the games are, they're also very different, right? Um, which I do have a hard time not. I absolutely see your point about Breath of the Wild and like the moment in time and the experience of playing it initially. It eclipses. I don't know, my experience of playing almost any other game on my first time through it, Zelda or otherwise. So it is hard to not see the argument for Breath of the Wild at number 1. I think the only game I want to put above Tears of the Kingdom would be Link to the Past. But I do not think that Ocarina of Time, foundational though it may be to what 3D Zelda is, there are a lot of ways that a Nintendo 64 game is difficult to go back to.
That is so true.
And I know there's a 3DS version, which is a lot easier to go back to, but it is still in its DNA a Nintendo 64 game.
Yeah, that's true. You can admire the achievement of Ocarina of Time
Yes.
while still acknowledging that it's maybe not a better game.
Yes.
Like if you were to sit down and be like, somebody was like, which one should I play? I want to play a Zelda game. I'd be hard pressed to not say play Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
Because even in its 3DS form, Ocarina of Time is still at heart a Nintendo 64 game.
Yes, exactly. So is that a compromise you can live with? Although I kind of just think that Tears of the Kingdom is also better than Link to the Past, a game that I love and have described as perfect multiple times in this episode.
Yeah, I am not. I am happy with Breath of the Wild as number 1, Tears of the Kingdom as number 2, Zelda: Link to the Past number 3.
Okay, I think that's as good as compromise is going to get between us, because I was saying Tears of the Kingdom number 1, and you were saying big gulf between it and Breath of the Wild. So I can live with that. Mark, should we review what we have here?
Yes, I just want to lodge that I maybe would change Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past, but I am happy with the ranking that we have now.
So currently we have Link to the Past above Ocarina of Time. Obviously, both foundational games, both basically invent what the series will be going forward. Do you want to make an argument for Ocarina above Link to the Past, or you want to let it go?
I want to let it go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is a good ranking.
Okay.
Yeah, let's start from the bottom.
Start at the bottom, number 16, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link for the NES.
Number 15, the Oracle games, Ages and Seasons.
Number 14, Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks and the DS.
Number 13, Minish Cap.
Lucky number 13. Number 12, Zelda on the NES.
Number 11, Link's Awakening.
Number 10, Majora's Mask.
Number 9, Phantom Hourglass.
Number 8, Skyward Sword.
Number 7, The Wind Waker.
Number 6, A Link Between Worlds.
Number 5, Twilight Princess.
Number 4, Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time.
Number 3, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past.
Number 2, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
And number 1, for the third time in a row since we've done these rankings, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
So Breath of the Wild, our definitive number 1 still. And of course, Tears of the Kingdom are number 2. I don't know. Every time we do a ranking and we get to like the most predictable number 1 and 2, I'm like, well, okay. Some things you just can't mess with, right?
Yep.
Some things are just true. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you have any feedback on our list here, you should email us nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And if you want to get in the Discord and tell us about how we messed this up, you should get in there by emailing us, and we'll let you right in. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much to our 16-bit patrons, Connor McCabe, Patrice Millette, David Henley, Alias X, Kyle Seaborn. We appreciate you all very much. We appreciate everyone who's listening to this episode. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.